What's going on, guys? Do you ever sit and wonder to yourself what it might be like and what might be required to be a champion at any level? I know I do. And today's guest may be able to elaborate a little bit on that as he's not only an NCAA champion, national champion, but he's a World Series champion as well. It is an absolute honor to welcome back Arizona Wildcats head coach and 2024 Pac-12 Coach of the Year, Chip Hale. Coach, what's going on, man?
Yeah, everything's great. I appreciate you having me on. Love to talk baseball, so excited to get going.
I love that. That fires me up. I'd love to ask you some questions. Obviously, you are returning here to the Nine Hole Podcast. Extremely grateful. Love to talk a little bit about your experience, how that plays into how your student athletes perform, the success you have on the field. I'd love to talk about the expectations that you continuously defy throughout your career, especially last year, man. Picked to finish ninth in the preseason coaches poll. And then I'd love to just talk a little bit further about your insight and kind of your advice to the next generation of athletes, man. So without further ado, man, I know that we are creeping closer to September. And as we get closer to September, things start to ramp up. What is life like right now on campus?
Yeah, well, it's exciting. All of our new players, all of our returning players are coming into town. They're doing all the school stuff, trying to get their schedules finalized. They're getting their what we call our cat cards, which is their identification, getting all their codes. All these buildings they have to get into, they have to have a touchpad code, so they're trying to figure that out. And it's just good to see them. You recruit a lot of these kids. You recruit them whether it's through the portal, high school, junior college, and now we're starting to get them all together. And we can't coach them yet, but they've been out here playing catch, and they'll do the new players will get their physicals tomorrow, so they can start hitting in our cage. And we'll start up on Monday. We'll have our meeting, and then it's we'll full go and see what we got. We got a lot of players, and we're gonna have to make it down to 40 at some point this fall.
I got you. Okay, so that's a couple things I'm going to ask you about. Obviously, in this recording, are the roster rules now? Some of the rules are changing. Man, I'm going to ask you about, the expectations moving on this year, and obviously with the portal development, you had, specifically two players this past year that were real standouts, man, that were homegrown, Tucson natives that you were involved in recruiting and having the impact and development. I think that is fantastic. Obviously, now with the portal in today's game being so prevalent and having such an impact on the way that you are able to kind of construct your roster, man, what is your take on the portal and obviously the impact it has on today's game?
Yeah, I think the portal is it's good for the kids. It's good for the coaches at times. To be frank with you, when you have 40 guys on your roster, let's say you have three or four freshmen that didn't play at all, didn't get any opportunity, didn't get in the lineup, whether we redshirted them or not. In baseball, when you're 21, you can get drafted. After your junior year, you can get drafted. So the whole redshirt thing is great if you're not going to ever play pro ball, right? Because then you can play longer. But, we have 8 returning starters this year. So for those guys, they had to jump in the portal and get places that they know they're going to get playing time next year. Because as you know, if you don't play baseball for, a whole season, it makes it hard on your development. And we're all about development. So, this year we got a bunch of really good freshmen coming in. We got a bunch of really good returners. It's going to be a battle to get playing time. But as you know, when you're trying to get in there when a guy's had 4 years of experience, it's going to be tough. So the one good thing for this year's class of freshmen and next year's class of freshmen is there's probably going to be 7 or 8 guys that go in the draft. So there's going to be a bunch of spots for the 2016.
Love it. I love that.
As you said earlier, the rules are changing next fall. We're going to be dropping down to a 34-man roster. Scholarships are going to go up. We're going to have more scholarships. So there's a good and there's a bad. There's going to be a whole lot of guys that are trying to find spots that they fit.
What's going on, everybody? We as baseball players, we as athletes, we all have something in common that we all share with one another. At some point, our careers are going to come to an end, whether we play 15 years in the league or whether we don't make it past high school or college. This is called the Money Playbook. So this teaches financial concepts for student athletes, for professional athletes. It's got a bunch of financial concepts in there that I didn't learn until I was done playing. Go on over to Amazon and check it out. It's called the Money Playbook. It's written by Mark Tepper, who is an NFLPA registered investment advisor. So he has worked with a plethora of professional athletes. Like I said, go to Amazon. We'll leave the link in the bio and the description of this episode. It's a must-have. Check it out. Let me know what you think. The development piece is something that I wanted to talk about. Obviously, the Nine Hole podcast, man, baseball development is key. Obviously, with my career, man, the development piece was how I separated. I wasn't necessarily the most physical specimen out there. I wasn't the best baseball player. I just felt like I was able to deal maybe with failure and overcome adversity a little bit more. So you've had a insane baseball career, both playing and coaching, multiple levels, multiple positions, and you've had success damn near every step of the way, man. How do you use your experience that you've accrued over this, long, vast career, man? How do you use that to coach these men at the collegiate level?
Yeah, I think, with the experience, that I have, whether it's at the pro level now in the college coaching, college playing, um, one thing I never forget, and you kind of mentioned it, is how hard the game is. And I was just like you. I wasn't the biggest, strongest dude out there. I wasn't the most recruited guy in my high school. I was probably the fourth or fifth guy. So from a young age, I knew how it was to battle and have to find ways to get things done that other guys didn't. And so I think that helps you, as you know, as you get into pro ball and you fail. Okay, I've done that before. Now, how do I quickly get out of this thing where other guys fall into those slumps or struggle on the mound for weeks at a time? So yeah, that all helps. But in the end, you know, it's hiring really good people to be around you. That's one of the things about being on a World Series staff in Washington. We had great coaches and we had great players and great front office people, and it was just a really good mix. And that's what I've tried to do here. I've tried to hire the best coaches and developers, and they're all come out of different places, college, pro. I try to mix them and give our players a chance to learn from everybody. And sometimes, as it just needs to stay out of the way and let them play.
Yeah.
And let them fail a little bit, especially this fall. We're going to have some young kids who have always been the guy in their high school team, and they're going to find out that there's a lot of guys that are better than them right now because they've got a lot more experience.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you were bringing in players that are, maybe big fish in a small pond. They're going to be coming into a big pond, and they're
Right.
going to be fitting in, right? They're going to try to be fitting in, obviously trying to make a spot on the opening day roster or, on in the starting nine. I get it. So, man, you have had hands in the development of high level athletes. Just to name a few: Bryce Harper, Juan Soto, Trey Turner, Paul Goldschmidt. Those are absolute studs. And that is an abbreviated list. I didn't want to include everybody, man. So you talked about maybe letting them fail, deal with adversity, maybe getting out of the way a little bit. What is it like coaching players like that at such a high level and a talent level? And man, what are kind of the ways that you would maybe tell players to overcome adversity?
Yeah. Well, those guys are really easy because they're so talented. And that's just a relationship deal. When I went to the Diamondbacks as the manager and Goldschmidt was ingrained as the leader of the team, I probably learned more from that group of guys that you named, whether it was Juan at 18 and just watching him and just, at that point, you're almost, it's like your son almost,
Yeah.
you're just trying to make sure he's okay off the field and make sure everything's, he's ready to go for game time, because once that starts, those guys' talent just takes over. Watching Harp deal with press, dealing with fans, and we learn a lot more from them. It's the guys I think we developed through the minor leagues, coaching, or the young guys, the Brandon Drurys I had in Arizona who came up and we had to figure out to give him something other than baseball, because as you know, some guys get so fixated on the game that they need an outlet. So
Mm.
um, it's more of a mental thing when you get to the big league level. I think the minor leagues is where you see a lot more of the physical, catching of the ground balls, the angles you take as an infielder, all those things you try to get done at that level. Now, as you know, Major League Baseball now is becoming more of a developmental, phase. The Orioles proved it. The A's are doing it right now. They're starting to turn the corner, and their coaches are having to be almost like minor league coordinators and teach, which is a cool deal. And that's a fun thing to do.
Love it. Love it. So when these players are, maybe playing for your program for the first time, if they're freshmen, or, you have players go on to pro ball and they struggle or they have any type of adversity, maybe they're not used to playing baseball at such a high level with the demands and the impact that the media has and just, man, obviously all of these demands that playing baseball at the high level has. Man, how would you say to overcome adversity? What kind of tips would you give on overcoming any sort of struggles?
Yeah, you know what's really important, and I heard Nick Saban say this the other night on Hard Knocks. It was really cool listening to him talk to the head coach about Caleb Williams and how to help him. And really, it's our job where I sit, whether it's as a head coach of a college team or a coordinator of the infielders or the Diamondbacks back in 2002, or a manager in the minor leagues or a manager in the big leagues. It's to develop winning habits, right? And to get rid of the losing habits.
Mm,
Because in the end, like you said, all adversity and struggles is part of the game. And if you have winning habits, you realize that the scoreboard sometimes it doesn't tell the whole truth to the game. You may have done everything perfect and you lost the game. You know,
yeah,
Guys hit a walk off home run in the ninth inning. So be it. But you did everything right. Your habits were good in pregame. Your habits were good off the field, and that's our job here in college. Is we're not only teaching habits on the field and in the clubhouse. We're teaching habits of eating and lifting weights, and for the first time for some of these guys, managing their time, what they do at night. So we have to get the good habits and make sure they get rid of the bad ones.
gotcha. Yeah, you're teaching success, multifaceted success,
Right.
probably, in the all encompassing baseball development journey and kind of playing baseball at one of the highest levels in college baseball, man, for one of the best teams. Obviously, being ranked in the top 25 nationally is wild. I'd love to hit on that a little bit further. So you ended, 2024 ranked number 21 by Baseball America, and you were picked to finish ninth in the preseason coaches poll. Man, how were you guys able to kind of like, I don't want to say bear down, but like, buckle up and overcome that maybe, bottom of the conference ranking?
Yeah, I think those things are we all have to do them. We go to these coaches meetings, or your SID comes in and says, "Hey, we have to rank the league," and all you do is look at who has the most players back.
Mm,
You know what I mean? So Oregon State had the most guys back in our conference. The Pac-12, which is no longer, um, and so you put them number one. We can't vote for our own team, so I mean, was I shocked that we were picked ninth? No, we lost a lot of guys the previous year. Um, we had a new pitching coach. We had a whole new rotation. And who would have known? Kevin Vance, our pitching coach, did an unbelievable job of developing a staff. And we went out in the portal and got a few guys, and they clicked. So that's how you pick those preseason things. You just look at who has the most players back, starters, starting pitchers, and yada yada. And you never know what the injuries are going to happen. And we played really well in league. We had a hard preseason against really good competition, and helped us. And we went back into the Pac-12 and got hot and played really well. So really proud of the group, proud of the coaching staff on what they did. And like we talked about earlier, we faced a lot of adversity early in the year, and we just chalked it up to experience and told them the whole way, hey, don't worry, this is going to help us down the road.
So a bunch of new faces coming in. Obviously, with the portal, you got guys drafted, got new coaches coming in. How do you get those guys to click with so many new faces, so many new personalities, and put forth like another successful season, another winning season, another dominant season?
Yeah, well, people, we always talk about culture and how do you develop a culture, and I think culture is the people you put in the room. So obviously your coaching staff, the student managers we have. We're trying to develop a whole group of analytic, managers. So that's a new thing we started last year, and we got a guy right now working for the Diamondbacks who's going to get employed by them, and he's going to be in the big leagues before any of our players get there. So that's a really cool deal. This is a whole another side of the game that when I was around never even existed. So if you put the right people in the room to help your, the actual guys on the field, it helps. I mean, it all starts, 6 a.m. weightlifting on Mondays and Fridays. The camaraderie they get, having to show up and not be late. And like we talk about, creating those good habits, the winning habits. Are you a guy that goes to class? Those things all play into it. And, do the players, I try to stay out of the main locker room that the players have. They need to develop their own identity. And this team will be different than the last team. And it'll be different in 2 years from now.
Love it. So you were, talking about your personal playing career. You were obviously an NCAA national champion at your alma mater, obviously where you're at right now, man. So you were a 17th round draft pick, an absolute underdog, as I may say, and you ended up blossoming and putting forth parts of 7 major league seasons, man. And you spent 15 years in Major League Baseball. Man, how were you able to defy those expectations? How were you able to put forth such an incredible career at the highest level?
Well, number one, I was caught really well here. We talk about winning habits by Coach Jerry Kendall was my coach who played in the major leagues, was a national champion as a player, a national champion as a coach, was really, held us to a really high, everything we did was we had to do it at the best, whether it was catching a ground ball, whether it was cut off and relays, whether it was first and third defenses. We had to do everything right. And so when I went to pro ball and I got with another organization, the Minnesota Twins, which was at that time was really, really into player development and really we had to be the right, had to do things the right way. So I fit in really well. And the one thing he and I could always do was hit, I was a really good all around player in college. When I got to pro ball and I got to the big leagues, I made, those parts of those 7 years because I was a good pinch hitter. That's what it came down to. I thought I was a good defender, but when I got around those guys, as we know, those are the best of the best. And I wasn't as good of them. I couldn't run like a lot of them. I couldn't field like a lot of them, but I could hit. So my left-handed bat kept me in the big leagues for a while. But more than just playing, I learned so much from Tom Kelly was our manager, and he was a real stickler on the fundamentals, and just listen and try to get better every day. And that's what led to me to want to coach and get back and get my 10 years in somehow, some way. So I was able to do that. And then to come back and be able to do this with college kids has been pretty cool.
Fires me up. So you had alluded that you were a good hitter, a good pinch hitter. That's obviously what kept you around. You were a 277 career major league hitter, which is wild, man. Especially being able to do that off the bench.
Yeah.
So in my limited time up there, obviously, man, I was like a backup to the backups. So coming off the bench in a game where we're losing by 10 runs or we're winning by 8, right? In games that maybe don't matter, you absolutely have to lock in. I think in the couple games, the handful of games that I was able to start in the big leagues, I felt as though I had a better chance to produce results, get on base, and help my team win if I were to start. So I have a insane amount of respect to be able to perform coming off the bench, man. Was there a certain way that you were able to like lock in and put forth a quality at bat coming off the
Yeah.
bench?
It was so interesting because we didn't have, there was never a cage in the Metrodome when I played there. We barely had a weight room. I used to go up every inning after the third or fourth inning and ride the bike for a minute or two and do the old UB machine. You remember that? It was you would be able to warm
Oh,
up your
look,
arms
you
and
row?
shoulders. Yeah, almost like a bike for your arms. And then swing a bat in the tunnel. There was no tee set up. There was nothing. And we really didn't have the ability to look at video like we do today either. We had to kind of have the guy would have to rewind it or put a new cassette in to show us one of the relievers. So just a lot of pregame stuff. And I did a ton of live batting practices off of, hard throwing BP throwers. They used to throw from the rubber. It was a different era. We had guys that worked in the clubhouse that could pitch, so they used to go out early and hit because we didn't have, like I said, there was no cage,
Mm,
no
man,
work.
grinding. I love it. Obviously, all that grinding paid off. It's fantastic to see, man. So I'd love to ask you a question about the year that you won the World Series. So 2019, man, you are the bench coach for the Nats. So this is Game 6 of the World Series. Dave Martinez gets ejected in the seventh inning. You have to step in, take over. Man, you end up forcing a Game 7, and obviously you win the next day. Man, what was that like? What's that experience like? Take me through that a little bit.
Well, number one, it was that's one of those rules where Dave got thrown out, which we all hate. It's the whole lane rule, and I felt like that, and I'm adamant about it still to this day that for me the lane is for when the ball is in the dirt for the catcher. You know what I mean? If the catcher picks up the ball, he does need a lane to throw. You can't run out in the grass. But if the ball's in the third baseman or the pitcher's hand out by the mound, why don't we call it when the shortstop throws it from the hole and he runs it up the line and it hits the runner? You know what I mean? Why isn't that interference?
Yep.
So we're always adamant about it. So when that happened and they called it and it cost us runs, it cost us bases, everybody was really mad. And I know Davey just, and we all do it. We lose it. And we were trying so hard between Tim Bogar and myself. We were trying to hold him back. And he's so strong and so big that I was laughing because it took me till the end of the game, and it probably helped me, whatever the 2 innings I was able to manage, probably helped me because I was just exhausted from holding him back, and we couldn't quite hold him back enough. So he gets tossed, and here I am managing it. And the one thing people kept asking me is like, why would you take Steven Strasburg out of the game? And I wanted to complete the game. I didn't want to have to walk out to the mound. But at that point, we had our closer Doolittle ready, and so we brought him in to face the lefties. But it was so hard, man. It was so hard to deal. Obviously, you got your team there. We're ahead, and you're sitting there going, "Man, do not screw this up." That's the first thought. It's a bad thing to think, but you just want to keep going and just get this game over with. And thank God we won it. But it was fun. When it was all over, and you can think back now about it. It was a great time. But at the time, I was so physically exhausted that I couldn't even really get nervous at the time.
That's wild, man. That's wild. The physical exhaustion trying to hold Coach Martinez back, man. That's fantastic. To not be nervous, obviously having to be so physically exhausted. I guess that's a great thing, right? It all evens out in the end. The rest is history. I love it. Would love to just ask you a couple more questions. Again, we're here with Chip Hale, head coach for the Arizona Wildcats. Fantastic. Thank you again, Coach, for your time. So, recruiting, obviously, in order to be a top 25 nationally ranked program, you need to be bringing in top tier talent. So we talked a little bit last time you were on about what you're looking for. So I would like to specifically ask you, what are some red flags when you go to see a guy where you're like, hey, I don't want him, or obviously he is talented enough to maybe play here. I'm not going to take a chance on this guy.
Yeah, well, we try to be as family oriented as we can because we want the guys when they to fit in with the group. And obviously, if you see guys that aren't hustling, that's a huge red flag. We're always gonna take guys that whether things are going well or going poorly, they're gonna play the same. They're gonna, like we talked about, the winning habits, and that's our job to teach them. Um, we're never gonna shy away from players. If something happens, off the field, if something happens, we're always going to check it out. We're going to make sure and bring good people in, but we're also going to give guys second chances. We're not going to say, oh, hey, he's had this happen or his family's had some tough. That's okay, man. Adversities sometimes makes people better.
Yeah.
So we're always going to check them out. We're gonna do our vetting, and it may be different than other people. But yeah, red flags would be guys. You got to run the ball out. You got to hustle on a turn. You got to play the game. You got to be. We know that everybody in high school and all these travel and these showcase things we go to, they're not going to line up right on cutoff and relays all the time. That's our job to teach them. But we like guys, obviously if you see guys that do those things already, it helps. It's not going to hurt you. It's going to help us if we know you know where to go on the field when things happen.
Absolutely. Have you had in this process where you are vetting these players and getting to hopefully, Arizona, man, have you had players and their families, have you had the parents negatively impact the recruiting process?
Oh yeah. Yeah. There's times you go to tournaments or showcases, and you can always tell whose parents are who. They're the ones videoing when they get up to hit or pitching. And we'll watch and check it out and see how they interact but hey, listen, I have never shied away from parents calling me. I welcome them to call me. Some people say, hey, once they get here, they're my guys. If you have a problem, have your son call me. But I always tell parents, hey, if you need to talk about something, if it's off the field, please call if there's something going on, because one of the things that's changed a lot since I was in school and even started playing professionally is the mental side of the game
Mm,
and the mental strength people that we have. And in college, as your freshman year, it's almost more off the field than on the field, whether it's homesickness, whether it's breaking up with a girlfriend and those things happen. And, losing a parent, all these things have happened, and we're their parents here at the university. So if there's something going on that we don't know about, they need to let us know.
yeah, all that stuff you just mentioned about the freshman year adversities and then, being there as, for mental support. That is stuff that I feel like I had to deal with, especially my freshman year, man. So that you just hit the nail on the head
Yeah.
there, man. I get it 100%. Wrapping up here, we got a couple more questions for you. So obviously you had a fantastic career. You're still just paving the way. You're still adding to the story, man. It's fantastic to see. You're looking back before you get drafted. You obviously have probably major league dreams, right? You want to be at the top, man. What kind of advice would you give to your 21-year-old self who's hoping to one day be at the top?
Yeah, I think I give that advice to our guys as much as I can. And I just say enjoy the ride. I mean, enjoy the journey, because we all have this idea. Like I had the idea I was going to go from A ball to double A to triple A to the big leagues. I was going to be there in 3 to 4 years, no problem. Well, it happened. I went A ball, double A, triple A, and got called up. But then I was stuck I ended up playing 5 years in triple A in Portland, Oregon. And I didn't think that was going to happen, but you have to enjoy it. You have to learn. There's a reason for all these things, whether it's development, whether it's somebody that's better than you, that's passed you up. And I was a second baseman. That's all I played in the minor leagues. And all of a sudden I got called to the big leagues in 1989, and Gary Gaetti got hurt, and they put me at third base. I hadn't played third base since I was here at the university. So, that's one thing I've always preached to my guys, whether it was as a minor league manager or a college coach. If you play infield on my team or you play outfield, you're going to play them all.
Mm,
You're going to learn how to play left, center, and right. You're going to learn how to play. If you're a middle guy, you're going to learn how to play second, short, and third. And first baseman, I'd like you to be able to play something else. So you have that opportunity. That's the only reason I got to go up, is because I could play other positions.
love
So
it.
I try to stress to them, number one, you're going to struggle. Number one, enjoy the struggle. And number three, just know that God or something has a plan for you. Just trust in it, and it's going to work out.
Amen. Amen. So we talk about the defensive versatility right there, man. Had just had a one of the national cross checkers on for the Oakland A's the other day, and he was preaching, defensive versatility. It's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing to be serviceable at multiple positions. Obviously giving your program and the future major league organizations plenty of options, man. That's big time. So, Coach, what is required to be a champion? We opened with it. There was the opening line, man. It's fantastic. You've absolutely been crushing it. You've been able to accomplish the top tier stuff at top tier levels, man. What is required in your eyes to be a champion?
Well, I think it's the winning habits. If you have winning habits and you put together the group you need to put together, you have a chance. We just were sitting in my office talking about the Los Angeles Dodgers, and they've been the gold standard, right? It's like we always look at their development, we look at the guys, their teams, and every year they're winning the NL West. It's not easy. That's not an easy thing to do. But they've only won one World Series. It reminded me when I was growing up and the Braves, those great
Hmm.
teams they had. So I do believe that organization has got they've got a lot of things figured out. But to win to take home the trophy, there's a lot of things that go into it, right? There's a lot of luck. There's a lot of getting hot at the right time. That's what happened with us in Washington. And I know when we won it in 2019, we had the right group. There's no doubt. But so did the Dodgers, so did the Astros, so did the Cardinals, so did all the teams that were in it. Everybody is at the same level. So now you're talking about the team that gets the hottest. And when we beat the Dodgers in the playoffs, it was 3 out of 5. If it was 4 out of 7, we may not have won it. To be frank with you,
I get it.
so you have to be in the right place. You can't. So I think there's a lot of championship players, championship programs, championship teams in the professional ranks that don't end up taking home the ring just because of circumstances. It's as you've been in games where you're controlling the whole game and somebody hits a walk-off 3-run homer. It's one bad pitch and one good swing.
Yep. Coach, I love that. Last question I got for you. Obviously, you are out in Tucson. You're out in Arizona. And so being on the West Coast, you have access to, in my mind, the best burger joint on the West Coast, man. In and out. Are you a fan? And what is the go-to order?
Yeah, I'm a double animal style.
Oh,
Yeah, I love In and Out, and it was a more of an LA thing when I was growing up. Now it's all over, and we have a bunch of them here in Tucson. So we have everything. That's one of my recruiting questions when I walk around campus. I'm like, what's your favorite burger? Because growing up in the '70s, I grew up in the '70s and the '80s. We had McDonald's, Jack in the Box. We had all the old school ones. I don't know when the last time I had a McDonald's burger. To be
yeah.
frank with you. There's just Five Guys. We got them all out here. So
I love that.
yeah, it's one of my. I always ask, and I always get the Midwestern guy, the California guy, and California. Well, the In and Out's better in California than it is in Arizona. I'm like, okay, well, I'm not so sure of that, but I understand.
Whatever. That's a fantastic recruiting piece right there. Chip Hale, head coach, Arizona Wildcats. Thank you so much again for your time, man. We are looking forward to seeing you put forth yet another successful year. Wishing you the best, Coach. Thank you so much again for your time.
Well, thanks, Ian, and we're super excited here, and we're ready to bear down.
Love that. I love that. Take care, everybody. We'll catch you again soon.